Good evening, everybody. I'm Josh Satin, and welcome to Growers Live. Super excited to be here tonight. We got a very special guest. We got Ray Tyler of Rose Creek Farms from Selmer, Tennessee. I'm sure if you're tuning in, you already know who Ray is, an amazing farmer. And I just want to remind you guys that this show and a lot of the video work that you see on No-Till Growers is brought to you by you guys, the Patreon members. So please go check out patreon.com/no-till growers. We changed the name, so everyone can remember now, although who's going to forget Farmer Jesse? But anyways, yeah, No-Till Growers Patreon page would be greatly appreciated. And as a reminder, we take questions from our Patreon members first, and then we will go to live questions. So if you are interested in getting a question to one of our guests, make sure you are a Patreon member and go check that out. Schedule-wise, the next show will be in 2 weeks on November 10th with Daniel Mays of Frith Farm, one of my personal favorite farmers and awesome dude. He's also coming out with a book, and it is being released on November 10th. So I am super excited about that too. And I think that is all the announcements, besides hopefully you guys are enjoying the podcast, season 3. Jesse's doing a killer job, and I hope you guys are enjoying all that. And happy to see you guys in here. Let me get Ray on here. And before I get Ray on, let me just say that Ray's internet is pretty dodgy. So if we have issues, we might have to lose a video connection, but we're gonna shoot for it, and hopefully it will work out. So here we go. Let's get Ray in here. Good evening, Ray Tyler.
Great to be here with you, Josh.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Doing great. Doing
All right.
great. Got a little cold front coming in this week, so we're looking forward to that.
Okay. All right, nice. Has it been, you've had a mild fall like we've had here?
Yeah, it's been actually really nice. And we've obviously had some warm days, but it's probably been the nicest fall that I can remember since I've been farming. So
I agree completely.
it's been very nice.
Yeah. Good break from the heat. I feel like the heat broke a lot earlier than it usually does, so like I'm not complaining.
That's right.
Cool. Ray, so let's if you could just introduce yourself a little bit, maybe talk about your farm and, you know, the size of your farm, what you grow, and things that people should know you for, and those kinds of things. That'd be cool.
Yeah, so my name is Ray Tyler, and along with my wife, Ashley, we own and run Rose Creek Farms, which is a small, intensive farm in West Tennessee near the Mississippi border. We're about 2 hours from Memphis and 3 hours from Nashville. So we're kind of in that, really in no man's land out here. One of the poorest counties, and it's yeah, the local food movement is not alive and well. We'll just say that. But we're under 1 acre currently, and we have 6 children from 2 to 12. And currently, as of today, we are growing strictly 100% under tunnels, undercover. And that decision was made last fall after 2 record-breaking years of torrential downpour, and we made the decision that if we're going to keep farming, either we get control or we need to move somewhere else, because it was just ridiculous. And so we bit the bullet and got 100% undercover, and it's been the best decision we've made since I got out of livestock, which is a story for another day.
Ray,
But
I am so jealous, man. I keep joking about covering the whole farm. Talk about, like, are you using mostly, what kind of tunnels are you using for that?
I have 1 high tunnel, 30 by 96, and the rest are cat tunnels, which are between 14 feet wide by 100, and a few of them I've stretched to 16 feet. Because we're trialing some different drainage and paths, and so we're always experimenting with different styles and designs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's to be honest, I do miss open fields. I love the way it looks. I love looking out. I like being able to see my kids, because right now, you know, they're just running everywhere, and I can't tell which direction they're coming from. But in terms of growing and having good, healthy, consistent production, it's a no-brainer. It has been insane the amount of product we have delivered week after week. It's been great for the employees because no matter what, rain, snow, shine, it's really improved the quality of their work life. And I would say that's probably the biggest win, more than just production, more than the money, is really trying to create a environment that's more comfortable for the workers. Because let's be honest, farming is hard work. It's labor intensive. It's hot, it's sweaty, or it's cold, or it's rainy. And it can't, if you're really out in the elements, at least in my microclimate here in West Tennessee, it can be pretty miserable at times. So this has been just to see kind of the morale in my team, and never, at some point, one of my team members may get signs of burnout, which happens to, I think, a lot of farmers, and this year we just never had it. I have two guys, even they were cranking out double the production as we did last year. We just never experienced burnout because we weren't checking the weather, we weren't being wet. It's been a very enjoyable season growing.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, so I always say, like, I probably get twice the production in a tunnel that I do in the field for a lot of crops.
Yeah.
Like, are you now cutting back on the number of beds that you're growing, or are you just cranking out more food?
Yes. This year we definitely cranked out more food.
Okay.
Not like, for instance, I average on spring mix 100 pounds per bed, which is, I think, typical for, plus or minus. We were getting 185 pounds out of a bed of spring mix.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Now there's a lot of factors in there, so it's not just get a tunnel and magically you'll get 185 pounds. But all the methods that I've been doing for the past 10 years just compounded tremendously once we were able to protect from the elements.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I people ask me all the time. I was like, I would cover my whole farm in tunnels if I could.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. So what are some of the challenges that you've incurred? Obviously, like, the other thing about the morale, which maybe I don't think you hit on, but when you have really consistent production, I know the crew members, that's a big boost in morale too. You're not losing crops at all. It's easier to clean, like harvest and clean, and they're more proud of the products. I'm sure that's a big part of it too.
Every week they were like, my farm manager, who's been with me three full seasons now. Every week he's like, we would fill our 10 by 12 walk-in cooler. We would pack it out 3 times a week.
Man.
And I think last year, we would do that once a week for maybe 2 or 3 months. And he was just like, I cannot believe how much we're producing. And we did take away 25 beds. So, we actually lost a lot of beds out of production to make room for water runoff, which is some of the cons to having tunnels is when you get 80 to 100 inches of rain a year, that water has to go somewhere. So, so I would say it's been real. And, I have a new team member full time, and this is his first time being on a farm. And I just don't think he understands of, like, he's just like a deer in the headlight, like, of the immense amount of product week after week after week.
So yeah, and I know it's been a decade or so in building your customer base and all that.
No,
so do you have to travel pretty far? Do you have to travel pretty far to sell your produce?
I do. So yeah, and that is the most inefficient part of our farm business. We chose to be where we're at for multiple reasons, mainly personal and family reasons. We live in one of the poorest counties in the state. And they're not looking for what we're growing, and what they are looking for, um, I would make more money going to work for Walmart than I would trying to sell tomatoes at 25 cents a pound.
Right.
So that's just kind of where we're at. And that's a complicated problem, and I've thought, and we've tried all kinds of things to help with that, but currently we're driving.
Okay.
I have a team of people. I have 6 children. We have bills. We like to travel and do different things, and so selling 25-cent a pound tomatoes was not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And I put it up to where, so we do drive. Memphis is 2 hours. I go to Franklin Farmers Market, which is 2.5 hours away. I did have a driver for most of the season for the Memphis run, so I didn't have to do that one. And then I was driving personally for that Franklin Farmers Market.
Okay. So Ray, I know we were talking before, but as your business seems like it's growing really strongly and production's getting dialed in, I know we talked about some of your changes in your business and your role and sort of like your outreach and online presence. Can you talk about some of those changes that have been happening last year or so?
You mean like from going to like online sales?
No, in terms of like your education side, and I know a lot of people probably know that you have
Yeah.
like a master class, lettuce class, and
Yeah.
a bunch of other stuff, and
Yeah.
your role and your moving from like the field and all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah. So probably 5 years ago we've really nailed down the having lettuce production specifically year round. And after basically spending about a year, I'm able to answer everyone's questions. It's the same ones over and over and over. And my wife's saying, Ray, you cannot be taking away our family time to help all these people. It was too much. So I got some people together. I don't have the I guess you would say skill set to do all the filming and the editing, and there's a lot that goes involved with trying to get information that can impact a farm's business. But I do have a lot of the experience and all the know-how and the knowledge. So I partnered with another person, Michael Kilpatrick, and we basically really made this course that really it answered 90% of all the questions that people were asking, and that's kind of what I was really wanting. And that kind of led to a lot more on-farm events, which we actually did on-farm events probably after like year 1. Year 2, I was actually speaking and lecturing at a lot of local universities and garden clubs, and so I was already doing a lot more of outreach really the second year of farming, because there's really nobody doing what we're doing in our area. So it's a novelty. Like, we're the only produce farmer in our county. So once word gets out, people are interested in what we're doing, maybe not necessarily in what we're eating. So I already had a lot of that experience of just talking to people and helping them. And so after realizing that we had some information that can really help a lot of growers, the lettuce match, and I've been really haven't stopped adding to that. And I'm learning every single year. There's new varieties, there's new challenges. When I made the master class, we had relatively dry summers, and so it was fairly easy to grow outside. I actually prefer growing outside because the color and density. But when we went to 100% tunnels, that there's all kinds of different challenges. So I'm basically it's this kind of ongoing learning experience that I'm kind of bringing along all my students along as I learn. One interesting thing that I learned this year, kind of known about 8 years ago, and that was using biofumigation for different diseases. And last summer, I think between June and July, we must have received about 20 inches of rain, which is very unusual to receive that much rain in the summer. Well, that brought in Fusarium wilt and lettuce, which I've never seen before since I started farming. And I had not been able to get rid of that disease. Like, it didn't matter how many crop rotations, what we planted. When I would go to plant, just anything that grew in those fields did poorly. We did compost, let it rest, mellow. So this year, I tried this biofumigation with lawn clippings and timing and eradicated 95% of it. So, like I said, I'm always so what this has done is this has really given me a really great platform to try new things, because growers are experiencing Fusarium wilt all over the world. I mean, it's a very common disease in other parts of the world. So up until really the spring, I've really devoted a lot of time to basically just putting everything that I've learned and am learning onto that platform. And it's been a lot of fun. And I've learned just as much from teaching as I have from the people who have probably learned from me, you know?
Absolutely.
So there's no end to learning. And that's what's so exciting about agriculture, is the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Right. So, and that's been taking up a lot of your time though, Ray, like the education side of it.
Yeah.
So how has that
sure.
affected the balance on the farm? Because I'm like myself, like I'm an educator too, and I'm online a lot, obviously. And how's that balance working out for you? How do you manage that also with 6 kids?
Yeah, I do have a farm manager. So when it comes to the production, I do zero production work anymore. And so that transition happened about 3 years ago. Really happened well last year, and then this year I haven't done any production whatsoever. So a lot of it is just building a team that kind of believes in what you're doing and where we're going and the opportunities and possibilities. We try to take as best care of our team as we can. And so I've been very blessed to have really an amazing team of folks helping us grow food. So that's really taken a lot of the weight from me, having to be out there harvesting and planting and bed prep and composting and irrigation. And so, and now I'm able to teach them about water management and diseases to look for. And so that's been crucial.
Awesome.
And he's year round, right? So every year he gets better and better, and I have to think about the farm less and less and less.
That's awesome. That's amazing. All right. So let's get into some questions here, because we could probably just sit here and talk. And that happened. Yep. I had Cliff Davis on, and we chatted for like 40 minutes. I was like, Cliff, we haven't answered a question. Yeah. He's like, it's been 40 minutes. You know Cliff, obviously. Yep. All right, so we're starting with the Patreon questions, like I said, and if you guys are watching, please hit the like button. That would be really cool. And so first question here is from Dan Eggert. Hey, Ray, what are you using for retail packaging for loose greens and salad mix, and how did you come to that decision? Any future for non-plastic or reusable packaging materials for greens? I know I get asked this all the time, so.
Yep, this is a great question. And this year, since we've gone 90% retail, I would say, this is something where you can't make everybody happy. But we have experimented with a lot of things. So number one is I primarily have packaged most of my lettuce products in plastic clamshells for market, because my last year's market, that's what they wanted. And that's what all the grocery stores want. They, around here, if you don't have it in a clamshell with a nice barcode, they're just not. So this year, with more retail, we went to these long tubular bags, which have been a massive hit. So a lot less plastic. It's still plastic. I did try some compostable clamshells for a time. And to help with the people who are anti-plastic, and they look at those as the same thing as plastic. Um, they've sat in my compost pile for months and months and months, and I've never seen them break down, and they're not convinced that they're any better. So the second thing is I've done some work with paper bags, just regular paper bags. You can get 300 of them from Sam's or something. They'll break down and dissolve within a month, maybe even less. They're in a compost pile. The problem with paper is that it won't keep lettuce as fresh as long. But I found that they will keep lettuce fairly fresh for at least 7 to 10 days, which is enough for most of the clients that we serve. And so that's something we're looking at doing more and more and more. It does take a little bit more time to pack, and it's a lot more fragile, and it can't hold air, so you can't really stack it. So there's some cons to that whole packaging option. But for your hardcore, don't want to see any plastic, pure compostable, that has worked fairly well, surprisingly, for us this season. This is the topic that a lot of farmers don't like to talk about, because, to be honest, there's not a good solution that really makes everybody happy.
I agree. I think about the humidity as well. I'd worry about the humidity with the paper bags too. I mean, in and out of the cooler, and the green's got to be totally dry, probably, going into the bags. Sure. You could just tell all those hardcore paper bag lettuce people that you put all the plastic on your farm this year instead of on their food with your tunnels. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right. I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, this is the I guess the dirty side of farming, is that we live in a society, we all are driving cars, right, that either consume gas or are powered by batteries that consume a resource that is probably not really sustainable. I mean, we're kind of in a pickle here. I mean, even the people who are, hate the system, we're all in it. Unless you want to go and live really off the grid by yourself somewhere, it's tough to get around it. But I think the more and more consumers demand, they want a good compostable option, the more farmers try to educate our clients. Here's simply how I try to approach this. I try to do the best that I can and try and do a better job of being sustainable every single year. I'm not happy with it. Yes, I grow in tunnels. I'm wearing shoes that have plastic. I'm sitting at a desk that's, who knows who made it. But when it comes to packaging, I think just do the best you can, make the majority of your customers happy. You're not going to please them all. We get customers who will not buy from us unless we pack it in plastic. These are individuals who will spend $100 a week. Like, they're spending over $5,000 a week, one person, for their kitchen. And they will not buy from us unless we put them in plastic packaging, because it's going to keep it fresh a lot longer. And that's important to them. So,
yeah, I've had that talk many times, and I think the reality is keeping it clean, food safe, all those things are just important. And I think you're right with the bigger picture in mind. I mean, if you're buying lettuce from within a half an hour or an hour away versus like coming from California, I mean, that's a huge difference. That's not a plastic bag difference. That's more than that difference. So I think you got to think big picture with all that. So anyways, there's no good option. I hope there is soon, but that's what we got for now. I'm glad you're experimenting with paper bags. I think that's cool, but I couldn't even imagine.
I've had really good success. You'd be really surprised. And I may go all the way to my farmer's market next year.
All right.
We'll see.
I hope so.
We'll see.
Teach everyone, Ray. I mean, I hope that works out. That'll be awesome. Here's another question for you. Let's see here. Another question from Dan says, or sorry, Jody Miller says, Ray, greetings from Chattanooga. 2 questions. Irrigation, your farm appears to have mostly drip. One of my winter projects is an overhaul of my overhead wobbler system. I'm considering moving to drip. And then in regards to infrastructure, anything you do differently to the farm, like wash station, cold room, tunnels, etc. We talked about tunnels, but I guess just talk about irrigation a little bit.
Yes. So we had to do a complete overhaul on irrigation because our current irrigation system was for open field. But the good thing about tunnels and them all being the same size is that once you get one tunnel figured out, it's easy to replicate it across the whole farm. So I currently, I like a overhead mist and drip combo. I think both have their place. It's not really a one or the other for me. There's times when it's, one con of growing in tunnels is you do not have the airflow. And that's just, and that can be a problem when it's really, really hot and really still. And if you're just all overhead, you can get some rot issues. Maybe water traps in some leaves, doesn't quite dry out, and your heat index was 120 degrees. You're asking for disaster, at least in my microclimate, maybe not everywhere. So I like to have the overhead because it does water freshly transplanted or direct seeded crops quickly, like 10 minutes, and you're good. So let's say if you plant a tunnel of kale in August and it's 100 degrees outside and you need water on those plants quickly, you run out of time, you hit that overhead water switch, and 10 minutes, you're good to go. But come a month or two and you need a deep root watering, having that drip tape option is crucial. So that's how we have it. It's pretty easy. We have I've got one main line, 1-inch main line that runs on the ends of all of our tunnels, and then a 3/4 inch poly tubing coming up that feeds a water timer, and then a Y. The top Y goes to the overhead, and the bottom Y goes to the drip system. And so it's just really easy to flip that switch depending on the season. And most of the summer, we're walking every one of our tunnels every single day because things happen fast. Depends if it's overcast or if it's sunny, hot, cooler days. If you have a month of just straight sun, it's pretty easy to set a timer and leave. But if you have a lot of rain coming in, I don't know a really good way to manage water except you got to get your eyeballs on it, walk on it, look at that soil, smell it, feel it, and know how your crops are looking. And so I would say if you could pull off the overhead and the drip, you will be really grateful next year. That's my personal experience.
Yeah, I put in some blocks, field production wise, I put in some blocks that were drip and some that were overhead for different types of crops. But there are times I'm like, but I want to put this thing in there and I don't have overhead and I want to,
Right.
I think that flexibility is huge. I see more and more farmers doing it, but it costs a lot to set all that up and a lot of time as well. Still there, Ray?
We can drain the hull. You're losing me?
No, I got you now.
Okay, good. It's very simple to where we can drain the system if it's going to get cold, and then turn it back on when it gets warmer.
Okay, cool. Anything else you guys have been changing around? Like they're asking about wash station, cold room, stuff like that.
So one of the big changes we made, because historically we've moved, the majority product has been wholesale. We've always done a market, and we've had an online presence for about 3 years now, but it's just enough to get our feet wet in the concept. So, and my wife can wash, dry, and pack 100 pounds of spring mix an hour by herself. So it's very tight corner, and it's worked really well for her. Like, I mean, she's a machine. But when you're packing 155 individual customized orders, you need some space. So we built a pretty big awning that was attached to our pack house just to pack shares. And that made a huge difference. I mean, she can pack $5,000 of customizable orders in just a couple hours. But you need to have that space.
Okay. Yeah. The wash pack station is the biggest bottleneck. So
The bottleneck, man, if you don't dial that in, and the way we have our pack shed, it's not that big, but we designed it for one or two people, and everything is right there. You've got the cooler is right there, and we have two tanks, we have two spinning machines. The packing tables are right there with all the scales and all the packing material. So you don't have to walk very far.
okay.
And I found if you're doing a lot of high production, that's really important.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to another question here. Let's see. Adrian Durning says, Shalom, Ray. I'm pretty new to farming. Just started a farm this year. Can you talk about things to avoid burnout? Any tips or tricks or regiments or mindset stuff, etc.? Thank you.
Yes, I love this subject because I have experienced it so many times in my early years.
Everyone has.
So how much time do we have for this?
Whatever you want to give, Ray. You seem like a pretty happy guy every time I've interacted with you, so you're doing something right.
So, all right. So here, there's probably five things. Number one is you need to take one day off a week. So here's a short story. 8 years ago, this is our third year farming. Early spring, we're behind. It was cold, it was raining. We only had one high tunnel. So we were working 5 days a week. And every Sunday that we planted crops, those crops died. Without fail. So we decided that is a sign from God, and we are going to stop working on Sundays. And since we did, it made a massive difference. Just having that one day, and we were very strict about it. We would not talk about work. I would obviously have to go down and just check out the greenhouse and make sure that our plants were dying. But we were not doing any task on Sunday. Just family, friends, rest, sleep, enjoy each other. And I think having that day. So think about this. When you're growing, when you're farming, the number one job you have is to solve problems. And that's what you're doing all day long, right? You're solving the problem of not enough help. Oh, the seeds that germinate right. My water line busted. My client went out of business, right? There's always something. And when you're farming with your partner, 7 days a week doing that, it is not a good idea. And having that one day a week for your personal self, personal mental health, your relationships, having a day where you can focus on just them, look at them, remember why you're doing this, right? Most of us got into this because we wanted to be with our families more. We wanted to have a healthy social relationship with those around us. And if you're not careful, you'll end up hating everybody that's around you. So that one day is really important. The other thing is setting a time limit in your working day, and that is 8 hours, 10 hours, even 12 hours. Working 18 hours a day, which I've done, is a terrible idea. And in past, when we've done that, we've just felt like, we had this list, and we felt like if we did not get our list checked off each week, we were going to fail. But the biggest failure, in my opinion, is being always stressed out, worrying, hating those around you. So what we opted was we would rather fail at farming and be successful at our relationships. And what happens, it's like magic, is that at the end of the year, you do this and you're leaving crops out to die, or you couldn't get it all harvested, or you couldn't take everything that you wanted to market. At the end of the year, we made more money and had more time and we're happier. So it's really about trusting the process and not worrying too much about what you're not getting done, but just remembering more of why you're doing what you're doing.
Excellent, Ray. Yeah, you can never get to the end of the list. The list keeps going.
Never. Because like if you're a farmer, you're never satisfied.
No.
Right? Your soil is never black enough. You never have enough earthworms. The crops are never green. Like, it's never enough. So the other thing would be taking time off. So what we try to do, like with our team members, is now, because we've done this long enough, we know that come May, June, July is that is our busiest. We still have the 8-hour days, but we are cranking hard. Like, no one's taking breaks, not because we make them, but everybody wants to get the job done. It's getting hot, right? So you go from a nice, beautiful, it's cooler, and then it gets hot fast. Like here, it can be 32 degrees the first week of May, and the next week it's 98 degrees with 93% humidity. And that will just crush your soul. So what we do is we give our team a week or two off in late April, early May. And what that does is they come into the beginning of the peak season for us, fresh, ready to go. And then the early middle of July, we do it again, right? And so doing the before and right after it, and then obviously having really good, successful crops makes them happy. That's really been important for us, just giving the crew off when they need it. The other thing too that I've done is I've tried, like we have 2 full-time team members, and they all have families. And so I try to check on their families because, most guys are pretty stubborn and we're pretty good at just grinding, but they have young children and they have wives who may not love farming as much as the guys do. And so I try to check on them as well and just try to see, hey, how are the kids doing? Do the kids want their daddy home one day this week? Is the wife, has she had a week? Do they need a half day off? Do they need 2 days off? So I try to just stay in tune with my team and their families. Because if their families are suffering, then we failed, right? And so I want the farm, Rose Creek Farms, to not only be a good financial career, but a really good mental, stable, healthy thing for their whole families to thrive spiritually, physically, mentally, in the relationships. So I think that's another thing to think about too. The other, probably the last thing I'll touch on is there is time in peak season when we are realizing that maybe we're having some crop problems, or maybe because as farmers, you're planting in hopes. It's one thing about farmers is that we're the most hopeful people on the earth, right? We will not plant a single seed if we didn't hope that it would grow and produce fruit. Sometimes, though, we overhope and plant too much, or maybe the market changes and crops get thrown out. It rarely happens, but it can happen. And when that does, that can be discouraging, especially when they worked really, really hard for it. And I've seen that really discourage, maybe not burnout, but where they look like they're burnout, right? If it happens enough. And so I try to every week just touch base with the crew. How are they doing? Hey, look, I just got a call from our client. I know they promised they would buy 400 pounds of spring mix this week, but man, they just told me, I'm just letting you know, like, we may have to compost this or give it to charity. It's going to be okay. The farm's going to be fine. We're set up. We're good to go. So I'm trying to anticipate, and then I'm trying to talk to them before something like that would happen. Because that could be discouraging. Your team is trying. They're working hard. They've gone through a blistering hot week. And to see their fruit of their labor get tossed out or not sold or rejected can be very discouraging. So just understanding that life is not perfect. Farming is not perfect. Nature never does what we want it to do. And with that comes just chaos. And that's just where we're just trying to manage chaos that nature and the market is throwing at us. And so as much flexibility and communication and being flexible enough to take those hits helps the team weather those kind of things. Again, it doesn't happen often, but all it takes is those 5 or 6 things that I just talked about all happening at one time. Boom, you've lost an employee, a really good person. So hopefully that wasn't too long. Ultimately, I think it's really important for us to not forget why we're doing what we're doing.
Well said, Ray. Yeah. And I think the thing is I feel important to limit your time and focus. Don't forget about the things that are important and take care of each other. If it's your family, yourselves, your employees, because if you're struggling, you're not going to work well. You're not going to farm well. And yeah, it's not why we're doing this. So that's cool. Thanks for sharing that stuff, Ray.
People are more important than product.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's get to another question. Tyler Stowers asks, do you grow fruiting crops like tomatoes and cucumbers in caterpillar tunnels? And if so, can you talk about your cultural practices, specifically like cooling and trellising?
I used to grow tomatoes in cat tunnels and do not like that method because I think tomatoes, they do not like a lot of heat. If a tomato gets over 95 degrees, they will stop setting fruit. And I find in a cat tunnel, it's going to get over 95 degrees, especially when they get really, really tall. Which, if you grow tomatoes in a tunnel, they will get tall. A lot taller in a tunnel than they will outside. So I don't do those in a cat tunnel anymore. We do grow peppers and cucumbers, which is a fantastic crop, and everyone should be growing those crops in there. We can get about 2,000 cucumbers per planting in a cat tunnel. And then in peppers, my sheet somewhere, I think I want to say we get like 1,000 bell peppers, maybe 2,000 in one variety per 100-foot bed.
Wow.
So those things crank. They really, really do well. But a lot of this too is how healthy is your soil. I focus on my soil health. I'm making sure that my tunnels are teeming with life and earthworms, and I'm adding nematodes, and I'm feeding my soil on a regular basis. So that really has a lot to play with it as well. But yeah, I think growing fruiting crops is a really great way to increase our yield on those certain varieties. Because in our climate, with the amount of rain we get, they tend to get a lot of disease, and they just stop putting out fruit. Another great crop is eggplant. If you have a market for it, it does incredibly well in a caterpillar tunnel.
All right, cool. Let's see here. Alexandra Powell's asking, hi, Ray, is it possible to join the masterclass still, or is it closed until next year? Thanks, Alex.
I think we're going to open it in 1st of November. Yep, so like in a week or so.
Okay, cool. Seth Stallings asks, "We're out of power here in central Oklahoma. That makes me want to think about how and when to invest in backup measures such as generators, solar, etc. What's your thought process for investments in this area?"
I think I'm thinking the exact same thing. I do have a generator. I actually have two generators. I think the more production you have and the more people that are relying on you to succeed will determine on how up the list that investment becomes. So yeah, if it just again, it just depends. If you're just growing as a hobby or you're just getting started and you're kind of feeling it out, I would say spend that $500 to $1,000 on irrigation system, right? Because if you lose product 1 week, it's probably not going to hurt you. But when you got a team and you're doing $10,000 a week in product, probably need to have some security.
Makes sense. And what are you putting on that? The generators? You're putting your well. I'm guessing your wash station.
Well, yeah, the well and my greenhouse.
Okay.
So my just having fans. I mean, that's the greenhouse is very, very important for us to have a good, healthy transplants. So we do a lot of transplants. So I use germination chamber for everything because it's very consistent, and we have it on time where we know if we plant a certain seed this certain day, like clockwork, it can come out year round. So those things are really important for me to have control over.
Okay, makes sense.
Well, number one, well would be number one.
Yeah.
Without water, there's no life. So you got to have water. And then 2 would be a cooler, and then 3 is other things like fans and fridges.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's see. Leslie Dennis says, "Will you talk about your potting mix for your transplants, and do you fertilize them before they go on the ground? And if so, what? Thanks."
I'm currently using Morgan composting. Last year I was using Purple Cow, which I was really happy with, and then their management changed and their product just did not deliver. And so we have currently changed to Morgan composting. We do not, the reason why is because I don't like to add a bunch of mix to my soil. Like I don't want to have to add blood meal or green sand or there's so many steps we're already doing, and I just don't want to have to add one more. I would rather pay someone to do that. It's a certified organic product. It performs well for heavy fruiting transplants like tomatoes and peppers and microgreens. So I like having one mix that can do that whole range of crops.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of buying the mix that's all ready to go. It's one less thing to deal with.
Yeah.
Like, it just need to open
So
it.
much to do.
Yeah, there's just
yeah.
And those people know how to do it really well, you know? Like,
yeah, let them do it. And if I can interject one idea, this may sound blasphemy to a lot of growers. If you can buy plants from another grower, you should do it.
yeah, I've I know a lot of growers that do buy from like Banner Greenhouse, for example, like in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I go to their farms, like the plants look amazing. And
Yeah.
I think as farmers, we want to do everything. Like we want to mix our
Yeah.
soil. I don't know why that is, Ray. Like we all feel that way. And like in Europe, in Europe, it's like two different worlds. The people that start the plants and the field growers, those are different people. Like that, people don't all do the same thing. So yeah, I think there's sometimes where you're like, this dude's really good at that. Let them do it, you know? So
that's right. Yeah. Here's the thing with farmers is that you want to surround yourself by people who are masters in their craft. And so if you can get as many masters helping you farm, that's what you want to do. And so all my team members are way better at their certain task than I am. Obviously, I've done it for a lot longer, and I may be a little bit faster, but this is what they do. And they're really good, and they can focus. That's the other thing, is that as farm managers, we can't really focus on just one thing well. I mean, if you're like me, I'm thinking 5 years ahead. Man, what is my market going to be like? Okay, maybe I should get a farm store. Maybe I should get like some of the land. I mean, you're just thinking, and then you're thinking now. You're just everywhere. And so, while you're trying to water plants, it could be a disaster at times.
I know, Ray. I have interns I'm working with now, and it's like I'll try to help out with something, and then they're like, "Hey, Josh, I need help with this," or "How do I do this?" And I'm like, "I just forgot. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, I got to go handle something else." So yeah, you get pulled around a lot. It's hard to stay focused on one thing.
Yeah. Again, buy the potty mix from someone else who does it really well. It will pay dividends, and even better, find someone who can grow it for you. Unless you have a good greenhouse. But man, those early years, man, pay someone else to do that.
Yeah, I think there's that stigma of doing everything yourself, and then also I don't want to spend money on it because I'm bootstrapping this or whatever.
Right.
So
I
don't know.
understand.
Yeah, I get it too. I like that though. I've never been one to like mix my own potting mix. I'm like, what? I don't know. Like, let the professionals take care of that, and I can just open the bag and we're good to go.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Dan Eggert, another question he said here, are you experimenting with any new crops next year that you're excited about growing? I know you do a lot of experimentation, but.
Yeah, we do. Thought about maybe trying my hand at some turmeric. We eat pretty healthy as a family as of about 5 years ago. And so turmeric's a pretty important part of our diet. So my wife is always asking me, hey, if there's any way we can grow any of these crops ourselves, it would be just way, way more healthier. So I've never tried to grow it. So that's probably something I may try. Yeah, I mean, I've grown. There's not many things I had not grown. The problem is now that we're in tunnels, it doesn't always make practical sense. Like growing okra in a tunnel. I love growing okra. It's a great seller, but it's not going to work well.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine how much room they'd take up inside the tunnel.
Oh my goodness! I mean, just in the field, I grow okra that's 10 feet tall. I mean, we have to like trim them down. I mean, at the end of the season, it literally takes a chainsaw for me to cut these okra plants down.
We just cut some out. We had to use a saw. Yeah, they're like trunks. I know.
It's insane. It's like big trees and bushes. I think for experimenting, it's more of like what I'm really excited about is increasing soil health. So what we've noticed this season is since we don't have these goalie washers washing away our topsoil, is that everything that we're adding to our soil and all the rotations we're doing and time cropping is that our soil is getting richer and softer and pliable. And there's just I've got this video that I put together for our class of I had in our pepper tunnel, I had it was primarily drip, but I did some overhead to kind of flush some minerals in there, and I knew I was gonna get some earthworms out, but literally there was millions, like the whole top of the soil was swarming with earthworms. I have it on video. It's insane, and that to me that gets me out of bed. That's really, really exciting. And the proof is, I mean, out of that tunnel, we had record peppers. We only pulled them out because our market was getting tired of peppers and we were getting tired of picking them. 3-pound ginger out of that tunnel. Just insane. And they're still growing. So I'm really more we're experimenting with like different beneficial nematodes and adding all kinds of microbe strains to the soil. We're doing all kind of plant food, and that's been really, really fun seeing just in 10 months what our soil has, what it's done since we've been able to protect the soil from that heavy pounding. And this goes to where everyone watching this channel is obviously interested in no-till because soil health. What we're seeing with this tunnel, think about it as the forest floor. I did this this hike with my daughter 2 weeks ago. It's this old growth forest, and I just imagine that this stuff has never been disturbed by anybody, and that topsoil, I never found the bottom of it. It's just filled with soft, pliable, dark, rich. And I thought about these tunnels in a way. So if you think about that forest, it has that massive canopy, right? That protects that pounding rain from hitting the soil. Then it's got the leaves that are protected even more. And like the earth does not want to be naked. Anywhere that the earth is naked, there's desert, right? So there's no life in a naked forest. And so what I'm kind of seeing here is with these tunnels, and I know, there's a lot of arguments about how unnatural it is and all that plastic, and I agree with that. It is unnatural. But growing in West Tennessee, what we're growing is unnatural as well. So nothing we're doing here is natural. I mean, farming it's humans, we're doing something that nature does not do, You're not going to find rarely a head of lettuce grown in the forest or in a field somewhere.
Never mind 100 feet of lettuce.
Never mind 100 feet of lettuce. Right, exactly. So what we're kind of finding here is that these tunnels, that this really resonated to me when I went in this walk in this old growth forest, is that we're kind of imitating these old growth forests. We have the tunnels protected from the heavy rain, and it's either a direct seeded crop or we, in my case, I use fabric because I like to keep that soil covered. And I know it's not a popular thing for a lot of growers, but for me, every time we uncover that fabric, it is just loaded with life. I mean, it is just, it blows our mind every time we uncover that soil covering. So that to me is really exciting. And, and we're thinking about, okay, there's intercropping, there's endless experiments to do with this whole thing that I'm really, really excited about. And I think crops are naturally going to just thrive in that environment. That's what I'm seeing.
Cool. I know I saw, Ray, you posted, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, about using landscape fabric.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about that? I know that some people, that's like one of those like triggers for people, I feel like, using.
Sure. I get it.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's worked in?
So I was really against fabric. There was a grower about 8 years ago in Arkansas, and he's like, man, you really should be doing more fabric. Your weeds are out of control. I've been using this stuff for over 10 years, and it's still growing. So I really started using it heavily about 6 or 7 years ago, mainly for weed control. And then I started doing a lot more paper pot. And I was like, man, I love this bare soil stuff. Like, it's beautiful. There's black dirt, and there's no weeds, and it's great. But then in our climate, the rain, like we lost 2 inches of topsoil that I spent 10 years building up last summer. It was devastating.
Yeah,
devastating. Minus the financial loss of crop damage, there's no price put on good, healthy soil. So the thing too is on this bare soil, all these bare soil, see these low-lying crops like arugula, head lettuce, spring mix, bok choy, any of those greens that are growing low to the ground, our rains in our soil, it it splashes all that dirt to the underside of the crop. And it made the post-harvest work literally 4 times as long. And so where, she'll wash 25-pound tote of lettuce in a big 60-gallon bin, bubbler, and if it's going to bare soil, she'll have to drain and rinse that water off every single batch. Where if I grow it on fabric, she can go 4 to 6 times. It's very, very clean. So a lot of it came from her going, listen, if you want me in this pack shed, you got to give me cleaner product. This stuff is nasty, and it looks terrible, and there's disease, and it's just, in our climate, she hated it. And we were like, man, this paper box, we're not, no turning back, So anyways, we went ahead and did that kind of for her. And what we saw is at the end of that season, our soil was softer under the fabric than the bare soil. Then we're like, this is very interesting. Why is this, right? And so then we started doing it more and more. And then we had a piece of fabric on a bed of dandelion for 6 months. And I expected that soil to be rock hard. Just, I thought lack of oxygen, just one crop. When we lifted that fabric up in March, it was loaded with earthworms. And it was so soft, we could just reach our hand right in there. And the crop next to it that was bare soil was just hard. And so for us, what it mimics for me is basically it's a covering, a covering for the soil, a blanket for the soil that protects it. It keeps it warm. It keeps it comfortable. Because what we're finding is that the more comfortable you can keep that top inch of soil, the more microbes and earthworms will come to the surface. So, it's scientifically been proven that if the top inch of soil becomes 95 degrees, maybe off, earth will go down 6 inches. But if you keep it at that 70 to 85 degree range, the earthworms are close to the surface, eating and being more biologically active, which, all the other biological nematodes are attracted. Like, it's a whole underground symphony of biological life. And you want to keep all those critters closest to the surface as possible. So that was a really real eye-opener. And, we've used it off and on for the past 5 years. But after that March, and then I did my lettuce class, I did this trial where I had this digital thermometer. It was in June, I believe. And bare soil was around 143 degrees. Bare soil, right? And that's pretty hot. There's no living organism that's going to be on the surface of that soil. When I went in the tunnel and lifted that shade cloth where my lettuce was growing, that was 85 degrees. So, and what I've always found with lettuce is that lettuce plants can take a lot of heat, but you got to keep the roots cool as possible. And I think that is, that data of, wow, that bare soil is cooking underneath fabric is a lot cooler. And it feels like that lettuce is healthy. It looks good. It's June. It should be fried, but it's not. And again, yes, the leaves are touching the fabric, and yes, it's hot. That surface of the fabric is actually cooler, believe it or not, than the soil itself. So we've seen a drastic change, measurable, visual in our plants, visual health in our soil, by keeping the soil covered. Again, we do a lot of direct seeded crops, so you can't do it. but those crops tend to canopy and shade the soil.
Right.
So it's all about just, I want to keep the soil as comfortable as possible. Like, take a walk in old growth forest and take away those leaves and just take an hour. That's what I did. I was like an hour there, just like, what is going on here? And how can we as growers imitate this old growth forest within our means? It'll never be the same. And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's not perfect, but I'm a really big fan of keeping that soil covered. And maybe someone here will come up with this amazing cover crop that will do the same thing. I don't care what it is. I just like the fruit that it's given us.
That's awesome, Ray. I think as a lot of people get worked up about landscape fabric, and it sounds like for most people they're using landscape fabric to control weeds, but for your sake, it was more about the things that you mentioned. It was soil health protection, and then getting cleaner vegetables into the wash pack station. I had a couple of questions as you were talking. One is, did it matter when you were talking about field growing or tunnels? Like when you were saying like we're going to cover the ground, like do you still feel it's necessary in the tunnels because you're obviously not getting that splash from rain from the soil?
So, and I don't know why this is, but for some reason our soil sticks to the so I did a bare soil trial because I personally like the bare soil for a number of reasons, probably just more aesthetic, I guess. Really, it aesthetically does look more pleasing to the eye having more bare soil. So we did this trial of bare soil lettuce in April. Man, that lettuce in the tunnel was so filthy. The pack shed crew wanted to put it in the compost. And now the lettuce, the product looked great. There's really no difference in the quality between soil and landscape grown. But the amount of work they had to do to get all that dirt off that crop they were depressed. So, things like peppers, I didn't do fabric on them. I don't really do fabric on tomatoes. You can, because those do shade a lot.
So mostly lettuce. We're talking mostly for lettuce.
Really everything. So here's what there's two more reasons why we're doing this as well. One is weed control. No matter how many weeds, how many times we flame weed tarp, there's always weeds. Just our really humid, wet climate, there's just everywhere. And so we really have to cultivate once to twice a week, which doesn't take too long, but it's just, again, we have an 8-hour day. And so it's just like, it's a task we just don't really want to make time for. The second thing, so number one is weeds. There's no weeds, or very little. That's definitely a big plus, especially in May, when you're transitioning from that winter season to hot summer. Man, those weeds explode because the environment shifted, and they are ready to grow and prosper. Actually do a lot less direct seeded crops because the weed growth in May is so intense. The last reason, very small, but it's important considering what I do. So we homeschool our children. They're right here all the time. And we have a pretty loose education. I'll just be honest. We're kind of more about, but if it's a beautiful day, we're skipping school, or we're going to do it late at night, or they're going to be outside. And when there's planting happening, they really do enjoy helping. So with that landscape fabric, it takes the guesswork. Like my 4-year-old son can take a plant and in the hole where that fabric hole is. There's no guesswork. every single time. So um, that's another reason. I've tried to build my farm where my children can be a part as well. And is one of those that really 3 on. They can actually plant. And yeah. Those are, and again, listen, here I am willing to change. Seasons change. I'm always looking, hey, is there a better way? The end of the day, this is what I want. So I want a high quality of life. I want my team to be happy and love to come to work. Well, number one, I should say, I want my wife to be happy, right? That's number one, right? Then the other thing, then, I want to have healthy, sustainable soil that gets better and better every single year. I want crops that is nutritionally wholesome and balanced, where people are fed and their bodies are nourished well. So whatever it takes to do those things, that's what I'm doing. And I don't care what it looks like to other people or what it looks like to me. Like my team wants fabric. And at the end of the day, I'm seeing that it's actually really working well. They're happy. We have great looking product. We're making money. We're doing very, very well. We've over $300,000 this year. So on this under 1 acre, bringing in almost 10 grand a week from March till August. So the fruit is there. Everybody's happy. They're working 8-hour days. Maybe there's a better way. I'm open to it.
Right.
But we're loving it so far.
That's great.
And I don't need anyone else to like it except for me.
Right. I think you got to sort of, keep your ideals in your back pocket sometimes, and
Sure.
you got to make
Sure.
If there's a better way, you got to go for it. And I have more questions.
It.
I have more questions about landscape fabric and your thoughts on it, but I got to get to a couple questions because we've already been going at this for over an hour here. So let me see if we can get through a couple questions here because we haven't gotten any questions from the chat yet.
Okay.
So here's a question, just a thought. If your cat tunnels are on a slope, and have you thought about putting gutters on the side to catch the water and channel along the slope? And I'll just tag on to that. Like, how do you deal with the water coming off the tunnels? How is that managed on your farm?
Yeah, right. So great question. And this was a negative consequence that we knew was going to happen, but we didn't know how devastating it was going to be. So when you get a 6-inch rain, those tunnels shed a tremendous amount of water. And our soil, so when we started farming 10 years ago, I didn't know this thing to check to see if the soil would perk. It does not. It is hard as a rock, and it just hits the surface and runs off. So what we've done is between the tunnels right there, we've dug out a little, probably 6-inch trench between each tunnel. 6-inch deep, 4 feet wide. So water comes down the edges and hits that slope, and then our whole field does have a fall from east to west. So it hits that kind of goal that we have. It's fabric, so it doesn't erode. And then it goes down, and I've installed French drains on the ends of all my tunnels. Actually, I have one left to go, but that helps a lot. And then all those French drains run to this really big drain that runs off of our property.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess the idea is large trenches to move the water.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of the only way that's worked. And that's the downside to any tunnels is the edge beds tend to suffer if you don't.
Absolutely. Okay.
And to be clear, caterpillar tunnels are not better than a high tunnel. Nothing will ever beat control. Automatic sides, the more air you can heat and cool, the more higher quality your crops in your soil will be. But, I just spent $20,000 on a high tunnel, where you can get two cat tunnels that'll cover the same area for $3,000. So it's kind of like, but my cat tunnels are there to be my old growth forest canopy, if that makes sense. Where my high tunnel, that's for really high value crops like tomatoes and there's some crops I want to minimally heat so I don't stunt the growth in the wintertime especially.
Makes sense.
So I did want to put that in there, that I'm not saying that cat tunnels are the end all to all your problems.
Right, but a huge upgrade from no cover.
Yes, but it depends where you are. Again, this is a decision I made for me in my context. When you get 80 to 100 inches of rain, it was the best logical. It was the best decision for us, and I did not want to do it. I love my open fields. I love having tunnels because I've had 8 cat tunnels for 6 years. But I love my open fields, and I still miss them aesthetically. But when it comes to the quality of product and the amount we're growing, and the happy farm team and pack team, I can't go back.
Yeah, understand completely. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and for us, our biggest enemy is those hard rains. That's what happens. Yep. You get the hard rain, you get washout, you get erosion. Yep. Get damaged crops, so understand completely. Ray, let's move on to another question here. Tell us about your process on seedling lettuce, soil type, fertile type and schedule, weeks in the propagation house, and what types are you growing? There's a lot in that question, I guess.
Yeah, well, how about I just take a stab at the first one, and then we can
see where
we can go back. Yep, all right. So I have a germination chamber. And basically everything goes in there because I need consistency and as much control as I possibly can. I have a college girl who's been working part-time with us for 3 years, and she's amazing. But I only have her Monday and Wednesday mornings. So all my seeding greenhouse work has to be done by her, and they have to be taken out by a certain day because nobody works the weekends. So everything has to be taken out by Friday. So everything gets seeded into trays using Morgan composting, goes in the germination chamber. For lettuce, it's 48 hours like clockwork. It goes out on the table. And then it's really 28 days later. And the way my greenhouse is positioned, believe it or not, it's 28 days from seed to transplant, 52 weeks a year. So I positioned my new greenhouse where it's get the maximum amount of sunlight, and with heating it and the airflow that I have, is really designed to have the most consistent and fastest growth as possible. So it's 28 days year round is how long it takes. But you need to have that germination chamber, and having really good soil is 90% of the success that we have when it comes to transplanting. We've tried cheap stuff, making our own. It is all garbage. So I believe that you should spend the money and get really good stuff right out the gate. There is times like because those composting companies, their stuff is outside. Most of the time, composting, these are people doing this, not robots, right? These people have made mistakes before. Our batch is inconsistent. It's something was left out or missing, or it's never 100% perfect. But it's about 95% we can guarantee we're going to get that good quality production.
What kind of trays? I think so. What kind of trays are you using nowadays? What do you guys like?
I like the P200, and this is why. Is because 28 days, it's going to pop out easily. I need a transplant that my child can pop out. None of this, put it on the side, dibble them out. That's a waste of time. You need to grab a handful, pull them out, and plant them. I mean, two guys can plant 800 transplants in 15 minutes, right? They need to just pop out. So, and the P200s, we did that because we had this really tiny greenhouse, and we were doing thousands of transplants a week. And just the size, we needed a smaller cell size. So that works for us. Also, I find in the heat, the smaller the plant that has a really good root ball, the more, dense, short, healthy, not like spindly and yellow short, but just a nice, stocky, sturdy, strong root ball is going to withstand the heat, that heat shock once you transplant out in the field. A lot more better than like a big, tall, big, bushy plant. That's been my personal experience.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of the P200. It saves space. It's easy. Takes less soil. All of our drop seeders are for P200s. That's what we use. However, going now into fall and winter, we always have transplants on hold because you never know, right? Somebody leaves the door open, plants fry, animals get in there. So I like to always have, or, in the summer, it could be army worms. Anything can happen. So I always like to have a bed worth of transplants waiting to be replaced if needed. Going into the fall and winter time, plants tend to grow slower, once it reaches that 28 days. So let's just say if, like right now, we'll probably do maybe 1,000 plants in P50s or P100s, because maybe I want to hold them for 2 months just as a security. So in that case, I would hand seed bigger tray, but it's just only for the fall, winter, shoulder season.
Okay. That makes sense.
But everything else is basically P200s, except for tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, squash, things like that. And that'll be potted up gradually, depending on where it's going.
All right, cool. So let's take one more question. Let's see here. I know there's a lot in here, but I obviously can't get to all of them. Being in the South, how do you deal with the heat in the tunnels? I'm in North Carolina, and the hot, humid days, I could see have a problem with growing. What do you do to vent or circulate the air?
Yep. So I do not like the T-post ends end design that Farmer's Friend has originally, where they have this 150-foot long piece of plastic. It ties on the two ends with T-post. I've done that. I do not like that personally because it traps air. But anyway, it traps air at the peak where it wants to go down, right? So I've put a wiggle wire track on the end bows, and then I take my end walls off in the summer completely because I want as much escape of that heat. Again, the heat is a problem, but water is more of a problem than heat. Once, we select heat-tolerant varieties, I've got my soil cranked high in fertility. My water is really dialed in. I've trialed different varieties every single year, trying to select what's going to work for our climate. So I found that too much water is more of a problem than too much heat. It does get hotter though. Let me tell you, it's not cool. We will raise up the sides. However, there's some times of the season where it's raining every other day. We'll just leave those sides down, and we haven't seen any negative effects. It is hot, but it's more of a problem to have water come in than it is to trap excess heat. Only when I know I'm going to have like a week, clear skies, it's in the hundreds, then I'm going to crank up those sides. And what I do is I keep the row just snug enough to where if we do get a rain, it'll naturally bring those sides down. because nothing worse than having to get all your sides down. That's a task that will suck your time.
Okay. And then
So
what about shade cloth? You guys using shade cloth just individual beds?
yep, yes, no. Sometimes it all depends. Like let's just say, um, like early August, no, early September, we seeded a one bed of spinach. It was pretty hot, but in there was growing peppers. We had arugula and cucumbers, and we don't need shade on that whole tunnel because it'll have a negative effect on those other crops. So we did do an individual row for just that one bed, just to get that spinach to germinate in our summer. But typically, most of our tunnels has a individual shade cloth that goes over the whole thing. That's really nice. So there's two things that's nice for. And we always err. So it usually it can take a week for certain plants to recover from transplant shock in high summer. So by using the shade cloth, it can help reduce that transplant shock. And it depends what crop, what time of the year, there's a lot of variables between 1 to 2 weeks. Some crops, maybe we'll leave it on there for a month. Kind of depends what we're trying to accomplish. Things like spinach in June, maybe we'll leave it on there the whole season. But this is another great thing about tunnels, is, as you know, I'm sure where you live too, by 10 o'clock, it can be almost 100 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain days you cannot get all the harvesting done in time. Right? Maybe an employee is sick, maybe they needed the day off, and so you have a smaller crew that day for whatever reason, and they just cannot get to the romaine in time. But man, if they don't get to that romaine by 11, it is going to be shot as far as wilted. And I'm a big believer in you need to harvest crops at the prime optimum water retention, or else it's you're gonna have a hard time retaining that shelf life. So to prolong my harvest window, we'll just drape over that shade cloth over that tunnel, and it keeps it 10 to 20 degrees cooler. So that's another benefit, is having so you have a shade that's just there in the alleys. It's shade cloth, so weeds aren't going to grow in it. There's no bare soil, so it's not going to get muddy. It stays clean. Everything stays clean, and so you can pull it over for transplanting, pull it over to harvest. And that has really helped with our, even last week, we had a pretty sunny day. It was in the 80s, I think, and they were behind on romaine for we're doing some other projects, and they just drew that shade cloth over and finished off the harvest. So again, this is where these tunnels really has helped with the morale of my crew and my team.
I also think I'd like to go into the tunnel with extra shade cloth to go harvest. So
Yes, it's nice. And if it's really hot, you just turn on that overhead mister, get cooled down.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
so.
Yeah, great. Thanks again. This has been awesome, and we've been at this for an hour and a half now. So anything else you want to add? Just things coming up, your class, anything else you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, what I can do is I actually have a ebook that just kind of talks over. I know I said a lot of things probably faster than I should have, but it could benefit some people to read that ebook on a slower pace. I'm actually in the process of shooting kind of a basic course on how we're doing a lot of these visual things for the tunnels. Different how we've kind of managed water and drainage, and again, there's a lot of little things that goes to making these tunnels work effectively. I don't believe that it's the end all and will solve all your problems. There's a lot of things you have to do to make it work effectively. So yeah, we're getting that finished up now. But yeah, other than that, we've got another launch probably coming up in a little bit. And what I can do, Josh, is I can send you a link to that book, to that kind of free ebook. People can check that out. And yeah, stay in touch. If anyone has any questions, email me. I'll answer when I can. I do not want to promise everybody that I'll answer every email, but you could definitely email, and I'll get to it if I'm able.
All right. Ray.
If my wife lets me.
Right. All right. Ray, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure having you on. I know the No-Till community loves your work and everything you've helped out with. So thanks so much for coming on tonight. We'll talk soon.
It was a pleasure.
All right, guys. So big thanks to Ray Tyler. Just an amazing person, as you guys know. And maybe you got to know a little bit more about Ray tonight and sort of his commitment to farming, regenerative farming, and also taking care of his family and the people he works with. It's just, it's super special, and really appreciated having him on. Again, please go check out patreon.com/no-till-growers if you'd like to support our work and see more stuff like this. And we'll be back on November 10th with Daniel Mays from Frith Farm. Thank you guys so much, and have a great evening.